Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. As she focused on her breath, memories of her past began to surface. For years, she had struggled with a deep sense of disconnect between her inner self and the image she presented to the world. Growing up, she had always felt different, as if she were wearing a costume that didn't quite fit. Her mind drifted back to a pivotal moment in her journey. She recalled sitting in her therapist's office, fidgeting nervously with the hem of her shirt. "I don't know how to explain it," she had said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like I'm living someone else's life. Every time I look in the mirror, the person staring back at me feels wrong." The therapist, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, had leaned forward, her expression compassionate. "Take your time, there's no rush here." She had taken a deep breath, gathering her courage. I think I might be transgender." The words had hung in the air, both terrifying and liberating. It was the first time she had spoken them aloud, and the act of doing so had sent a shiver down her spine. The therapist had nodded encouragingly. "Thank you for sharing that with me. It takes a lot of bravery to confront these feelings. Can you tell me more about when you first started to realize this?" As she delved into her past, recounting moments of discomfort and confusion, she felt a weight begin to lift from her shoulders. The therapist listened attentively, offering support and guidance as they explored the complex emotions surrounding her gender identity. Over the following months, she had embarked on a journey of self-discovery. She experimented with different forms of gender expression, trying on clothing that felt more authentic to her true self. She remembered the first time she had worn a dress in public, the fabric swishing around her legs as she walked down the street. Despite her initial nervousness, she had felt a profound sense of rightness, as if she were finally stepping into her own skin. As she continued her meditation, focusing on her breath and allowing her thoughts to flow freely, she felt a shift in her consciousness. The room around her seemed to fade away, replaced by a serene, misty landscape. She found herself standing in a lush forest surrounded by towering trees with leaves that shimmered like jewels. A figure appeared before her, ethereal and glowing with an inner light. The being smiled warmly, extending a hand in greeting. "Welcome," the figure said, its voice melodious and soothing. "I am here to guide you on your journey of self-discovery." She hesitated for a moment before taking the outstretched hand. As their fingers touched, she felt a surge of energy course through her body. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. The figure's smile widened. "I am a reflection of your inner truth, a manifestation of the wisdom that resides within you. I am here to help you connect with your authentic self." Together, they began to walk through the mystical forest. As they journeyed, the guide encouraged her to share her fears, hopes, and dreams. "I'm afraid of rejection," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "What if the people I love can't accept me for who I truly am?" The guide's expression softened. "Fear is a natural part of any transformative journey. But remember, those who truly love you will see the beauty of your authentic self, and those who cannot accept you are not meant to be part of your story." As they continued their walk, the forest began to change. The trees thinned out, revealing a shimmering lake that stretched as far as the eye could see. The surface of the water was like a mirror reflecting the starry sky above. The guide gestured toward the lake. "Look into the water," they said gently. "What do you see?" She approached the edge of the lake, her heart pounding in her chest. As she gazed into the reflective surface, she saw not her current self, but the woman she knew herself to be. The image in the water had long, flowing hair, soft features, and eyes that sparkled with confidence and joy. "That's me," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "That's who I am inside." The guide nodded, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Yes, it is. This is your true self, the person you were always meant to be. "Embrace her, for she is beautiful and worthy of love." As she continued to gaze at her reflection, she felt a name rise up from the depths of her being. "Kamari," she said, testing the sound of it on her tongue. "My name is Kamari." The moment she spoke her true name, a wave of energy rippled across the surface of the lake. The world around her began to shift and change, colors swirling and merging until she found herself back in her meditation room. Kamari opened her eyes, feeling a profound sense of peace and clarity. The candles had burned low, their flickering light casting a warm glow across the room. She stood up, stretching her limbs, and made her way to the full-length mirror on the wall. As she looked at her reflection, she no longer saw the disconnect that had plagued her for so long. Instead, she saw the potential of the woman she was becoming. She ran her fingers through her hair, imagining it long and flowing. She traced the contours of her face, envisioning the subtle changes that hormone therapy might bring. With a deep breath, Kamari made a decision. It was time to take the next step in her journey. The following week, she found herself sitting in an endocrinologist's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The doctor, a friendly woman with a reassuring smile, reviewed Kamari's medical history and discussed the potential effects and risks of hormone replacement therapy. "Are you ready to begin this journey?" the doctor asked, her tone kind but serious. Kamari nodded, her voice steady as she replied, "Yes, I am. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." As she left the office with her prescription in hand, Kamari felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was finally on the path to becoming her true self. Over the next few months, Kamari began to see subtle changes in her appearance. Her skin softened, and she noticed small buds forming on her chest. Each change, no matter how small, filled her with a sense of joy and validation. She decided to document her transition journey through a series of self-portraits. Every week, she would stand in front of her camera, capturing the gradual transformation of her body and the growing confidence in her eyes. As she scrolled through the photos one evening, she was struck by the evolution she saw. It wasn't just the physical changes that stood out, but the way her posture had become more relaxed, her smile more genuine. She was becoming more comfortable in her own skin with each passing day. However, Kamari's journey was not without its challenges. She still faced moments of dysphoria and self-doubt. On particularly difficult days, she would return to her meditation practice, seeking guidance from the inner wisdom she had discovered. During one such meditation session, she found herself once again in the mystical forest. The spiritual guide appeared, their presence as comforting as ever. "You've come so far," the guide said, beaming with pride. "But I sense that something is troubling you." Kamari sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I'm worried about the future. What if I'm never seen as a real woman? What if I face discrimination or violence?" The guide listened patiently, then led Kamari to a clearing in the forest. In the center stood a magnificent tree, its branches reaching toward the sky and its roots delving deep into the earth. "Look at this tree," the guide said. "It stands tall and strong, despite the storms it has weathered. Its beauty lies not just in its appearance, but in its resilience and its ability to grow and adapt." The guide placed a hand on Kamari's heart. "You too are like this tree. Your journey has given you roots of strength and branches of courage. The challenges you face will only make you stronger, more compassionate, and more authentically yourself." Kamari felt a warmth spread through her chest, and when she opened her eyes back in her room, she felt a renewed sense of determination. The next day, Kamari decided it was time to have an important conversation with her parents. She had been putting it off for months, fear of their reaction holding her back. But now, with her newfound strength, she felt ready to share her truth. She invited them over for dinner, spending the afternoon preparing her mother's favorite lasagna recipe. As the aroma of herbs and tomato sauce filled her apartment, Kamari tried to calm her nerves by focusing on the task at hand. When her parents arrived, she greeted them with a hug, noticing the curious looks they exchanged as they took in her changing appearance. They sat down to dinner, making small talk about work and family news. Finally, as they finished their meal, Kamari took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad," she began, her voice trembling slightly.
"There's something important I need to tell you."
Her parents looked at her expectantly, concern evident in their eyes. "I've been on a journey of self-discovery over the past year," Kamari continued. "And I've come to realize something about myself that I need to share with you. I'm transgender. I'm a woman and my name is Kamari." A heavy silence fell over the room. Kamari's heart raced as she watched a range of emotions flicker across her parents' faces: confusion, shock, and something that looked like fear. Her father was the first to speak, his voice gruff with emotion. "I don't understand. You've always been our son. How can you be a woman?" Kamari took another deep breath, reminding herself of the strength she possessed. "I know this is a lot to take in, and I understand if you need time to process it, but I've always been your daughter, even if none of us realized it until now. I'm still the same person you've always loved. I'm just finally being honest about who I truly am." Her mother reached across the table, taking Kamari's hand in hers. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't pretend I understand everything about this, but I can see how much happier you seem. We love you no matter what." Kamari felt tears of relief and gratitude spill down her cheeks. She knew there would be more conversations, more explanations needed, but for now, this acceptance was everything she had hoped for. In the weeks that followed, Kamari continued to make strides in her transition. She began vocal training to help feminize her voice, practiced applying makeup, and slowly began to build a wardrobe that reflected her true self. One sunny afternoon, she decided to take a bold step. She made an appointment at a local salon, nervously fidgeting with the ends of her growing hair as she waited for her turn. The stylist, a vivacious woman with brightly colored hair, greeted her warmly. "What are we doing today, hun?" Kamari took a deep breath, then smiled. "I want to embrace my femininity. Can you give me a style that frames my face and makes me feel beautiful?" The stylist's eyes lit up. "Absolutely. I have just the thing in mind." As the stylist worked, snipping and shaping Kamari's hair, they chatted about everything from fashion trends to the best local coffee shops. For the first time in a long time, Kamari felt completely at ease, just another woman getting her hair done. When the stylist spun her chair around to face the mirror, Kamari gasped. The person looking back at her was undeniably feminine, with soft layers framing her face and bringing out the gentle curve of her cheekbones. "What do you think?" the stylist asked, beaming with pride at her work. Kamari couldn't stop smiling. "It's perfect. I feel like me." As she left the salon, Kamari felt a newfound confidence in her step. She decided to take a walk through the park, enjoying the feeling of the breeze in her newly styled hair. As she strolled along the path, she noticed people smiling at her, some even nodding in greeting. It struck her that they were seeing her as she truly was, a woman enjoying a beautiful day in the park. Kamari found a bench overlooking a small pond and sat down, taking a moment to reflect on how far she had come. She thought about the scared, confused person she had been just a year ago and marveled at the strength and resilience she had discovered within herself. A group of ducks swam by, their gentle quacking breaking the stillness of the moment. Kamari watched them, admiring the way they glided effortlessly through the water, completely at home in their environment. She realized that she was beginning to feel that same sense of ease in her own skin. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, Kamari made her way home. She felt a sense of excitement for what the future held, knowing that while challenges would certainly arise, she now had the tools and the support to face them head on. That night, as she prepared for bed, Kamari caught her reflection in the mirror. She smiled at the woman looking back at her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this point. She climbed into bed, pulling the covers up around her. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt at peace, knowing that she was finally living as her authentic self. In her dreams, she saw endless possibilities stretching out before her, a life filled with love, acceptance, and the freedom to be truly, unequivocally herself. The next morning, Kamari woke up feeling refreshed and energized. She had a busy day ahead of her, including a meeting with her support group and a therapy session. As she got ready, she took extra care with her appearance, reveling in the joy of expressing her true gender. She chose a flowy blouse in a soft shade of lavender, pairing it with dark jeans and comfortable flats. As she applied her makeup, she marveled at how much more natural the process felt now. What had once been a daunting task was now a form of self-expression and self-care. On her way to the support group meeting, Kamari stopped at her favorite coffee shop. The barista, who had known her since before her transition, greeted her with a warm smile.
"The usual, Kamari?"
he asked, already reaching for a cup. "Yes, please," she replied, her heart warming at the sound of her chosen name. As she waited for her drink, she overheard a conversation between two other customers. They were discussing a local LGBTQ rights rally that was happening the following weekend. Kamari's interest was piqued. She had been looking for ways to become more involved in her community. With her coffee in hand, she made her way to the community center where her support group met. As she entered the familiar room, she was greeted by the smiling faces of people who had become like family to her over the past months. The group leader, a trans man named Marcus, started the session.
"Today, I'd like us to discuss how our transitions have affected our relationships, both with others and with ourselves."
Kamari listened intently as others shared their experiences. Some spoke of family members who struggled to accept them, while others celebrated the deepening of friendships that had weathered the changes. When it was her turn to speak, Kamari took a deep breath.
"My journey has been challenging, but also incredibly rewarding," she began. "I've lost some relationships along the way, but the ones that have remained have grown stronger than ever. And my relationship with myself, well, for the first time in my life, I feel whole."
After the meeting, Kamari chatted with a few of the other members. One of them, a trans woman named Elena, mentioned the rally she had overheard about earlier. "Are you planning to go?" Elena asked. "It's supposed to be a big event. There will be speakers, music, and information booths. It could be a great opportunity to connect with more people in the community." Kamari nodded enthusiastically. "I think I will. It feels like it's time for me to start giving back, to help others the way this group has helped me." As she left the community center, Kamari felt a sense of excitement building. The idea of being part of something bigger, of potentially making a difference in the lives of others like her, filled her with purpose. She arrived at her therapist's office a little early, using the time to jot down some thoughts in her journal. When her therapist called her in, Kamari entered the room with a smile.
"You seem in good spirits today, Kamari,"
her therapist observed. Kamari nodded. "I am. I feel like I'm finally starting to see a future for myself, one where I'm not just surviving, but thriving." They spent the session discussing Kamari's progress and her plans for the future. Her therapist encouraged her growing desire to become more involved in advocacy work. "Just remember to take care of yourself, too," her therapist cautioned. "It's wonderful to want to help others, but make sure you're not neglecting your own needs in the process." Kamari took the advice to heart, promising to maintain a balance between her personal growth and her desire to support her community. As she left the office, Kamari felt a renewed sense of purpose. She decided to take a detour on her way home, stopping at a local bookstore. She browsed the LGBT section, picking up books on trans history and activism. She wanted to educate herself further, to better understand the struggles and triumphs of those who had paved the way for people like her. At home that evening, Kamari curled up on her couch with one of her new books and a cup of tea.
As she read about the brave individuals who had fought for trans rights throughout history, she felt a deep connection to their stories. She realized that her own journey was part of a much larger narrative, one of resilience, courage, and the unending human desire to live authentically. Before going to bed, Kamari stood in front of her mirror once again. But this time, instead of scrutinizing her appearance or searching for signs of change, she simply smiled at her reflection. She saw a woman who was growing stronger every day, who was learning to love herself completely, and who was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Kamari felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this point, for the people who had supported her along the way, and for the strength she had discovered within herself. She knew that her path forward wouldn't always be easy, but she was ready to embrace it fully, with an open heart and an unwavering commitment to living her truth. In the soft light of dawn, Kamari's alarm gently roused her from sleep. She stretched, feeling the warmth of the sun streaming through her bedroom window. Today was the day of the LGBTQ rights rally, and a mix of excitement and nervousness fluttered in her stomach. As she got ready, Kamari chose her outfit carefully. She opted for a flowing sundress in a cheerful yellow print, paired with comfortable sandals. The dress made her feel feminine and confident, perfect for a day of standing up for her rights and the rights of others in her community. Before leaving her apartment, Kamari paused in front of her mirror. She took a deep breath, meeting her own gaze. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection. "You belong here. Your voice matters." The rally was being held in the city's Central Park. As Kamari approached, she could hear the buzz of excitement in the air. Colorful banners and flags waved in the breeze, and the sound of upbeat music filled the space. She made her way through the crowd, stopping at various information booths to pick up leaflets and chat with volunteers. At one booth focused on trans rights, she struck up a conversation with the person manning it, a non-binary individual named Sam. "It's my first time at an event like this," Kamari admitted. "I'm still pretty new to being out and involved in the community." Sam smiled warmly. "Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Events like this can be overwhelming, but they're also incredibly empowering. Take your time, listen to the speakers, and don't be afraid to connect with people. We're all in this together." Encouraged by Sam's words, Kamari continued to explore the rally. She found herself drawn to a group of people holding signs about trans visibility and acceptance. Without even realizing it, she found herself reaching for a spare sign. As she held the sign high, proclaiming, "Trans rights are human rights," Kamari felt a surge of pride and belonging. She was no longer hiding or pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was here, visible and proud. The speeches began, and Kamari listened intently as various community leaders and activists took the stage. They spoke of the progress that had been made, but also of the challenges that still lay ahead. One speaker, a trans woman in her 60s, brought tears to Kamari's eyes as she recounted her decades-long fight for recognition and rights. During a break between speakers, Kamari felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Elena from her support group, grinning widely. "I'm so glad you made it!" Elena exclaimed, pulling Kamari into a quick hug. "How are you finding it?" Kamari's face lit up. "It's incredible. I had no idea there were so many of us, so many allies. It's overwhelming in the best possible way." Elena nodded understandingly. "I remember my first rally. It's a powerful experience, isn't it? Being surrounded by people who see you for who you truly are, who are fighting alongside you." As they chatted, Elena introduced Kamari to some of her friends, expanding Kamari's circle of connections within the community. They exchanged contact information, making plans to meet up for coffee and future events. As the rally began to wind down, Kamari felt a deep sense of contentment settle over her. She had spent the day surrounded by people who understood her struggles, who celebrated her identity, and who were working tirelessly to create a more inclusive world. On her way home, still buzzing with energy from the day's events, Kamari decided to take a detour through her favorite park. As she walked along the tree-lined path, she reflected on how far she had come. Just a year ago, the idea of attending a public LGBTQ event would have terrified her. Now, here she was, proudly holding a sign and connecting with others in her community. She had found her voice, and she was no longer afraid to use it. Kamari found a quiet bench and sat down, watching as the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. She thought about all the people she had met that day, all the stories she had heard. Each one was a reminder that she was part of something bigger than herself. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Kamari made a promise to herself. She would continue to grow, to learn, and to fight for her rights and the rights of others. She would use her experiences to help those who were just beginning their journeys, offering the same support and understanding that had been so crucial to her own path. With a contented sigh, Kamari stood up and began her walk home. She felt different somehow, stronger, more connected, more herself than ever before. As she walked, she held her head high, no longer afraid to be seen, no longer hiding from the world. Kamari knew that there would still be challenges ahead. The world wasn't perfect, and there would always be those who didn't understand or accept her. But she also knew that she had the strength to face whatever came her way. She had found her community, her voice, and most importantly, she had found herself. As she reached her apartment, Kamari paused at the door, looking up at the night sky one last time. She smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace and purpose. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and she was ready to embrace it fully, living her truth with pride and dignity. Kamari entered her apartment, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The events of the day swirled in her mind as she kicked off her sandals and made her way to the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of water, sipping it slowly as she leaned against the counter. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her mother. "Saw the rally on the news. You looked beautiful and strong. Your father and I are so proud of you. Love you, Kamari." Tears welled up in Kamari's eyes as she read the message. The journey with her parents hadn't been easy, but moments like these reminded her of how far they had all come. She typed out a heartfelt reply, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. As she got ready for bed, Kamari caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her was tired but radiant, her eyes shining with a newfound confidence. She smiled at her reflection, no longer seeing the disconnect that had plagued her for so long. Crawling into bed, Kamari picked up her journal from the nightstand. She began to write, pouring out her thoughts and feelings about the day. As her pen moved across the page, she realized she was no longer writing about hopes and dreams for the future. She was writing about her present. A present where she was living authentically, surrounded by love and support. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.